I'm like, I think now that like you like reconnected your mic, there's like less of a lag between like what you're saying and like what's moving on the screen.
Okay, so it wasn't like a delay, like I was actually lagging between the audio and between the voice and the, okay.
Yeah, I think this makes more sense now. Because that's why I was having a hard time.
So it's gonna be like that the whole time on the video.
Hello, and welcome back to the Creative Nonsense Podcast. This is episode 2, where I talk about creative people and the creative things that they do. Today I'm talking with Mark Mad Sounds about his music and other creative projects, so let's get into the episode. Okay, so Welcome back to the Creative Nonsense Podcast. I'm here with Mark, aka Mark Mad Sounds, or Fully Involved, or all of your other many usernames. You do lots of music type things and podcasts.
The now Discord famous Mark Mad Sounds, Twitch famous Mark Mad Sounds. Really, that's all you need to know at this point. I mean, unless you listen to really anything else going forward. I hope people don't take that seriously. Anyway.
So, how would you describe, like, yourself as to, like, would you say that you are a musician, you are a podcaster? What is, like, the thing that, like, comes first in your mind?
Okay, so when I was filling out that doc that you were, giving out to people, the thing that I was emphasizing was that I have a new EP out. I have this solo project, sort of one-man band operation called Fully Involved. I put out an album last year, and I just put out a new EP a couple of weeks ago called Insolence. And in the meantime, I do have a podcast, Mad Sounds, which is where that username comes from, though it has kind of been on hiatus for the last few months or so, just because, I feel like I've been spreading myself a little bit too thin between those things, my college classes and all that, so I'm kind of going all in on the music thing right now, but I'd still kind of like to tie both into my whole creative profile, So, yeah, I guess that's a good summary. I also do some writing for the Orange County Music League here and there, which I'm very proud of there, doing journalism, so that's just a nice little side gig there. But, yeah, I'd say the music thing is the main thing that I'm passionate about right now.
That's really cool. And so I listened to your EP earlier today, and it was really good. Like, the punk rock, vibes, to all of it were just, really interesting. And so, what was the process of, making that EP?
So, I can't really talk about the making of that without talking about the making of the previous project I did. This full-length album called Learned Helplessness that came out last August, I believe. Yeah, it was August. So the making of that was basically this Murphy's Law process of tech glitches and schedules not lining up and us recording in this tiny church where neither of us had recorded a full-length album before. It was kind of a mess of a process. We had to switch out amps a couple of times. It was a real mess. So that ended up taking about 8 months to record this little 9-song record. And in the meantime, I basically wrote a whole other album's worth of songs. And this time I decided not to go in over my head, and I decided to split those songs into what will be four of those songs were what's now Insolence, and 5 of them are going to go into another EP that I'm going to be recording in the summer. But yeah, I'm definitely more proud of this EP than I am of that record from last year. I am proud of that album from last year, but it's very DIY sounding, it wasn't mastered or anything like that, whereas this time around I went to a producer that had actually produced things. I went to I basically spent my winter break recording at his home studio in San Marcos. It's one of those, he basically carved out a room in his house that has there's Pro Tools and a glass between the production room and the recording room. I actually felt kind of professional for once. And, he was able to give me some pretty good rates, so I was able to, take my Christmas money and a couple $100 more and kind of funnel that into that. And yeah, I think that what I have now is definitely the proudest I've been of something. It's 4 tracks that, it's kind of an indulgent little concept EP, revolving around chronic illness and type 1 diabetes specifically for me. And yeah, it was cool making something that was a little bit more cohesive as opposed to the sort of hodgepodge of random ideas that I tried to make have some kind of flow before.
It was it's really cool as an idea to have an actual overarching theme for an album, and not just to have what is it? Even when you have like an album that's just like a bunch of tracks, you have to kind of figure out if they're gonna like transition well from like one to the other. And especially when it's like a shorter EP, it's usually harder to like make that kind of sound work.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and it is a little bit easier to pitch to people than a full-length album because, like, I've had my own little shitposty ways of marketing myself in the past that haven't really had the best results. Like, last year I put out this video called How Many Fidget Spins Does It Take to Listen to My New Album? Spoiler alert, 17. And this time I actually just uploaded a video where I'm going to start doing reaction videos to reviews of my album as they come out on YouTube because I used to be a music reviewer and I'm friends with a lot of people in that whole community. And in that, I mentioned that whereas that can be measured in fidget spins, Insolence is basically take the length of your favorite SpongeBob episode and just listen to the CP instead.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like 4 sweet victories in a row. If you want to think about it like that.
I'm thinking of like the Suds episode, and I'm like, they just like put that up against this playing in the background.
Well, I mean, you could probably make some allegory between Suds and diabetes if you tried hard enough. They're both. I mean, I'm sure that he's still got to control that all these years later. I'm sure. I got a lot of obscure SpongeBob references, and I annoyed many a coworker with it.
I'm trying to remember so much SpongeBob. I haven't watched TV since like I started college, so everything is fading into the background now.
Yeah, same here. Like, anytime I'm with, like, a bunch of people in the dining hall, and they'll be like, oh, what are some of your favorite shows? And I'll be like, does Sugar Pine 7 count? I don't even know. Like, like, I mean, as far as TV, like, I watch a lot of late-night shows, SNL, I don't know.
I know.
But yeah, I don't really watch shows, and I don't even have, like, Netflix either.
I consume so much YouTube content at this point. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, the subs are in the triple digits. Like, I do not have the time to, like, it's like the same reason why I'm on Facebook and Twitter but not Instagram. Like, I cannot afford to waste any more time on media than I already do, which is a lot.
That's probably a good idea. I have no self-control.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of why I kind of made a healthy goal, kind of moving back to the music thing, because before, when I was a music reviewer, like, I kind of got caught on that rat race of, like, keeping up with the new albums coming out every single week, and even if I wasn't reviewing them, just kind of always knowing what's going on. Whereas now, I'm just kind of like, man, I'm just gonna dive into my vinyl collection and just basically kind of focus more on my music than other people's music. Is like kind of self-centered as that sounds.
That's cool though. Because I was going to ask where you like decided which music you reviewed.
Yeah. I mean, my tastes kind of range. I mean, I feel like a lot of, like, music fans my age kind of like to say, oh, I like everything, but then they follow it with except rap and country. I think there's really good stuff in any kind of genre. You just, in some cases, you gotta look for it, maybe a little bit outside the mainstream, or, I guess it changes from genre to genre, but I don't really discriminate anything. Sometimes something might be a little bit too, like, I'm not really too into, like, extreme metal or anything like that, but, you know, even then there might be a band here and there that kind of gets me. So, I don't really count anything out entirely. You know, some I might be more qualified to cover than others, but yeah, like when I go through that gauntlet style, because on that podcast, me and my co-host Johnny, we did have this segment that it was hinging on for the last few episodes. I think it was a good format. This segment called "What Have You Been Listening to Lately," where he just kind of went back and forth gauntlet style through a ton of new releases or just whatever albums we were listening to over the past couple of weeks. And just kind of gave our brief few minutes thoughts on it. Maybe went back and forth on it if it was something that we were both, you know, that we had both listened to, that we were both fans of. And yeah, sometimes it can kind of go everywhere, and we reveled in how jarring it was from time to time.
That's really cool, especially having like a co-host when it comes to like music reviews. So it's like you can get like the differing like opinions on that kind of thing. That seems like
because the thing is, like, I started doing music reviews in, like, at least in the YouTube capacity at the start of 2014, and for a good 2.5 years, I kind of pretty consistently churned out these, like, you know, kind of standard talking to the camera, album cover in the corner. I don't know if you know, like, the Needle Drop, for example, or like Air TV, but it's kind of following that format. More or less, I tried to put a few spins on it here and there to varying levels of success. But after a while, like, while I was filming one, even though I was fully on board with what I was saying about the album, at one point, as I was sitting down on the stool where I sat down on to record, I just looked at my script and looked at the ceiling, and I thought, this isn't fun anymore. So at that point, because like at some point it just turns into like a Mad Libs of like this adjective here to describe this driving groove, and this catchy melody, and this messy transition, and this, like, I'm kind of jealous of the channels out there like Fantano, Needle Dropper, like Spectrum Pulse, or people, or like Air TV, or people like that can churn out multiple reviews a week and just have new things to say. I got kind of jealous of that. I never really found my footing as a channel, but then I just dove headfirst into the podcast after that, and you just naturally have more dynamic conversations when you're going back and forth with someone about it. Like, even if they haven't heard the album that we're talking about, like, they might still have a good idea, and like maybe I'll like send them a song from it, and they'll kind of get a vibe, and then we can kind of have a couple minutes of a back and forth, and it's definitely a lot more interesting that way, I'd say.
What are like what is it? Because you said you did your album as like mainly like a one-person thing. So like, how do you do that kind of like output for like making all of the songs for an album, and like figuring out how to like write it, and like just, I don't do music, so that's seems very interesting to me.
Yeah, it's kind of, I imagine, because I'm wearing a lot of different hats, like, I will say there are some times where I did bring someone in here and there when I need someone that actually, knows what they're doing on an instrument. Because like I did most of like, I'd say I did like maybe 80% of the instruments on each of these last couple projects. Like there was one guy that I brought in to play drums on a couple songs, mostly because because it was either like a super fast-paced punk drumming type thing where I just do not have the stamina, or it was the kind of thing where on the EP called At Least You Have Your Health, where I had that riff like written in my head, or at least like I've been playing it here and there since I was like 15 or so. So for like years before I even started putting out anything, but I had no idea like where it placed, like as far as rhythmically or like meter wise. All I knew is it sounded cool and like maybe a little bit early Nirvana-ish. So I decided for that one, like, I don't trust myself to come up with a good beat for it. So luckily the guy that was producing, Daniel, he knew a couple drummers that do session work. So I brought in this guy Tim that came and played on that and 484, which he added all kinds of awesome ideas to that I never would have thought of, and totally just put those songs to the next level, in my opinion, especially with that outro section in 484. And I mean, as far as like, and I also brought in my friend Powers, who played a guitar solo on one song on the last record, play a guitar solo on the outro of the title track from that record, of Insolence, because I don't really know how to shred. I'm just like a power chord, like guitar as a vehicle for songwriting kind of guy. There might be some picking here and there, but yeah, it's like anytime that I need someone to show a lot of proficiency and technicality and stuff like that, then I'll turn to someone else. But otherwise, like, really, because I'm not because this isn't a band, I don't really have a way to like rehearse or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I'll basically just take my guitar and just kind of play around with the song in my room, like even if it's like something a little bit on the heavier side, and just kind of work it out in my head, and then have a version of it in my head, and then as we're recording it, I'll like see how that plays out and see if there's anything I might need to change. But yeah, for the most part, like I'll have it like mapped out in my head, like in a Word doc. In addition to the lyrics, I'll have like drums open up the hi-hats here, or like little touches like that.
I'm thinking of like all the high school bands that like I grew up with. Like everyone played guitar.
Yeah, it is kind of the go-to. I'm kind of guilty of that, but like honestly, I think that I am honestly as good, honestly, if not better, a drummer than I am a guitar player, just because I played my church worship band for a few years, so I at least have like some basic surface level chops down. Like, but then again, it is worship songs, so none of them go like too fast or anything like that.
Keep it steady beat.
Yeah, mid-tempo for Jesus.
Music stuff goes over my head. I haven't taken guitar lessons since I was in middle school.
Okay, yeah. I think you mentioned something in your last stream or something like that about...
Yeah. I used to play guitar, like acoustic guitar, and, what is it? I taught myself semi-piano. It's decent. but I haven't played in like a decade probably.
Yeah, my keyboard knowledge just goes to the point of I know where the notes are because I took one intro to music theory class, but yeah, like there is one keyboard part in one song on that last album, Learned Helplessness, and it probably is one of the better songs on that, except my breakdown. And it did kind of add like a too spoopy vibe to the back half of it. But yeah, and I mean, I am hoping to incorporate that a little bit more into this next EP because it should be like a little bit more instrumentally textured. It should be a little bit softer, more singer-songwritery. So I can see myself spreading out a little bit more. But that's where I am right now.
It's definitely good that you have at least like more or less like surface level like skills and like all of these different like music styles and from like all the stuff that like you've reviewed and just like having like the different instruments as like a background when it comes to like thinking of songwriting as like a concept before you have to like actually like get there and like record something. That probably definitely helps.
Okay, so I'm going to turn the interview around for a second. So you've mentioned playing guitar for a little bit, and you do your poetry stuff. Has that ever like crossed over into like a songwriting thing at some point, or?
I have a very hard time writing things that rhyme. So that's like the only thing is what is it? The only kind of like songwriting that I've done is like I had worked on a musical for a while, but it was more or less I'm not sure how much like Broadway you know of, but like yeah, there's a playwright and like musical like orchestrator called Dave Malloy, and he kind of like goes into all of these genres, and he's known for like none of his songs rhyme like ever. And it's all very like free versey songwriting.
I mean, some people can make that work, I think.
Yeah. All of his musicals are very strange. Like one of them's called Ghost Quartet, and one of them's called like Great Comet, and both of them are like you have to experience those musicals because they're very different than like normal like what you would think of as Broadway songs.
Yeah, and I guess that sensibility comes from the amount of hip hop that I do listen to, like anytime I listen to, I don't know if you're familiar with this guy Aesop Rock, but it's like anytime he's like a super like dense and cryptic, at the same time kind of funny kind of rapper, and anytime I listen to an album of his, I'll just get super jealous and be like, oh, why aren't I writing like stuff that technically amazing? And then I'll just go and do I feel sad and that was bad, and maybe not that much, but
that is kind of lost all of it.
I mean, I guess that's a healthy way to look at things. I've never taken like a creative writing or poetry class in any of my classes, and I'm kind of going all in on the journalism classes right now. But I do kind of wish I had taken at least one when I was doing my GE elective type stuff. I will say there was one time I took one English class in my community college where I forgot the name of the type of poem it was, but it was a structure where it was like 8 lines, and there's like two different rhymes that are just like repeated in a certain structure over the course of it. Start with an R. But anyway, from what I wrote there, I basically turned that into a song on that last album, and yeah, so I can at least say I got something from that. But yeah, I'm not really I don't know what the equivalent of like classically trained would be. I guess it would still be classically trained, but as far as poetry, like I've just kind of gone on my own weird way, metaphors and stuff.
That's really cool though, because I know definitely like there's different. I've seen, especially like recently, just like the different styles, like the way that people like learn and like do their own creative process. Because like I was talking to people who do like coding, and then this guy who I was working on a project with yesterday for one of my English classes, he's a math major, and so he's like, he is in numbers, and like that kind of abstraction of like weird like numbers makes complete sense to him, but like the kind of abstraction that happens in like creative writing makes like 0 sense to him. And like I feel really restricted when it comes to like analysis essays, and like so it's like it was just all these weird things where it's like all of us have like our own rules as to like what we like to stick to and which things we like to be free in.
I hear. I mean, in that way, like I'm kind of the opposite of that guy when it comes to math. Like I'm grateful that I was able to stop at high school at pre-calc. And even then, that was good God. When I started getting into numbers that don't exist. One thing that I do want to do at some point is get more into like co-writing and collaborating and stuff like that, and that might come when I do eventually form a band or I'm fully involved. Just because, like, funny thing, the one time that I have co-written a song, it was with a friend of mine, John, who runs this pretty popular channel, Air TV. He just sent me like a little voice demo in the middle of the night one day in like 2014. That was like a verse and a chorus, and I thought, hey, there's potential here, and I kind of worked it out. And I really thought I had something, but then, I was mentioning that I don't rehearse. Like I don't really have a way to rehearse. Especially the stuff that really tests me vocally, because like that's definitely the area I'm struggling the most in out of anything with my music. Thank God for Melodyne in the case of Insolence. But yeah, so there's this one song for my last record where I did that whole process. I wrote it down, and I was super proud of it. We recorded all the instrumentation, and I went up, and I couldn't sing it.
Oh, that sucks.
So then, yeah, we tried for like a couple sessions, and like no matter what, there was like a couple of the higher notes. I would just like, I would basically go into puberty again, and yeah, it was humiliating. Even if it was just me and this one guy, that's cool. So what we did is that I ended up re-recording the guitar and the bass just in a lower key, so like a step down. Mm-hmm. And even then, like, it was a little bit easier, but I just didn't have the power to pull it off. So it's just this outtake looming around on my iTunes archive that will probably never see the light of day.
I didn't think about like how like vocally that could like hold you back from like certain projects where it's like I just can't hit that, and like that's just something you can't really do much about. That particular song, like, it was a super kind of belty, hard rock, like angry kind of thing, and there's a little bit of that on this EP here, but I think it was even more so as far as the bombast goes. But fortunately, I've been told by the people that have listened to my stuff that I tend to be better in like my lower mid-range, and for the stuff I'm working on now, it seems to be going a little bit more into that territory. So I'm optimistic as far as that goes going forward. Like I think I wouldn't say my harder days are behind me, but as far as my 2018 stuff, I think that it'll be a little easier. But yeah, that's kind of an annoying hurdle when you don't have a way to rehearse stuff out before you start paying for sessions. I moved here last year, and before that I pretty much just lived in like the North San Diego County area, which is about an hour south of here. Yeah, and I don't even know which way I'm gonna go. If I'm just gonna keep going further north and assimilate into the entertainment culture to try to find something, or if I'm gonna go back down to more of a local scene. I don't even know. Like, I just turned 21 last year, and I was only exclusively looking forward to getting into the venues. That's it. No more X's on hands.
Except voluntarily, if I decide to officially make it straight edge. I mean, I listen to enough punk that I could justify it, but I don't want to be annoying about it. Like, I'm kind of the big trio. I'm kind of the big trio of what the hell do we even give this guy at a party? I don't drink, don't smoke, and I'm diabetic.
Wow. Yeah, it's like, do you want some water?
Well, I mean, I have some bread. Oh, shit. I have a Diet Coke. Excuse me, that has aspartame. So I'm a fun person. Yeah, and I mean, as long as we're going on this tear, I have a pretty good sense of humor about my diabetes. I mean, as you can tell from the title of that EP, it's a quality pun, if I don't say so myself. And my favorite tweet I ever tweeted was, when you wake up and your blood sugar level is 69 and you say nice before you pass out. but yeah, like, it's funny, like 6 months went by of me having all the symptoms without me realizing it, like when I was 18 or so. So like, yeah, coming up on 3 years ago. And like, I just happened to have like a big whipped creamy frap, that morning. And then I went there, and I was like, I don't know why I lost 50 pounds in 6 months. And like, I don't know why I'm peeing every 20 minutes, and why I had a breakdown after working at a summer job at a fair where I stood in the dirt lot 10 hours a day. Anyway, I went there, and yeah, all the R tests were done, and said, well, I guess we can test your blood sugar. And I was like, okay. Well, prick the thing, 400. Is that good? No. And yeah, just kind of casually strolled into the ER from there.
Dang.
And yeah, and 2 years later, now I have this EP.
And it all comes full circle.
With a nicely photoshopped syringes and insulin vials and everything. Shout out to Hannah one time for editing that. And then, yeah, it's like if you want to go back to the EP, it's like subject matter wise, like I don't know how you are, but whenever like the idea of writing something that's been said before, or like a cliche saying or something like that, I think like for people that do that a lot, like how do you sleep at night? You know, because like what's the point of writing things if it's just regurgitating things that have already been said? So I'm like, well, I better go. I have no problem with going super niche. Might as well, write a coy song with a double meaning where one's being diagnosed with a chronic illness and one's being trapped in a loveless marriage, and you can decide which one you relate to more. And then a song about a blood sugar crash, and then a couple songs railing against the healthcare system. Like, do you have a certain like range of subject matters that you like to stick to when you're writing, or is it just like whatever comes to mind?
I know that I have. This was like a thing that I didn't realize until like I was in my poetry workshop in the fall, because it was like just like the things like we always come back to, and so it's like I know that I write about love like a ton. I know that I write about like nature a lot, and like balance of like the universe and like air I talk about a lot.
Makes sense. You get a lot of good metaphor material from that.
Yeah, but I found out that I have a very hard time writing about family, which was very interesting.
Because they might see it.
I don't think it's that. I think it's just like I have a lot of like suppressed things that I didn't realize until very recently. But yeah, I think that was like, it was just one of those things where it was like some people in the class, like one girl's mom has cancer, and so she writes a lot of stuff about like illness, and she has these really beautiful like escapes that she makes in like all of her poetry, which are just like fascinating. Then another girl writes about like abusive families and like siblings, but it's like there were a lot of people who wrote things that are like focused on their families, and so like it really made me realize like that is something that I like never dive into.
Yeah, I feel like if I went into stuff like that, like I would just feel totally unqualified. Like the same reason why I might have touched on. I did a couple songs about healthcare and politicians and stuff like that, but like I don't go like super direct politics a lot of the time because it's like I don't really feel qualified. But I mean, the closest I've gone to talking about family is like there's this one song on this next EP that is basically something I wrote in a night a couple years ago with my dad about the fact that I don't think I want to aim to have this super prestigious degree in some high income job or anything like that. I'd be glad to settle. I'd settle for a decent paying job and staying in an apartment and getting by. And he was like, "What?" and then I just took a year off from college, and then just kind of wrote this song about I'm just gonna chill for a year. Shut up. That was like the closest thing, but yeah, I never really had much in the way of like abuse or anything like that, so I don't feel qualified to touch on any of that stuff. But for people that want to use it as like a therapy mechanism, like it's definitely useful.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm like, I know a lot of people who just like, because writing things is like such a catharsis, like always.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like whichever things you need to like talk about like the most tend to be like the things that like come out. But then there's like also some things that like you leave unsaid and like you don't want to confront them, so you just like leave them off to the side until like it's like I don't want to write about that, not today, maybe another time. And then it's like years later and you're like I should probably do something about that. I think it's really cool that like you took a year off of like college to like figure out like what you're doing like that. Yeah. That's cool, because I almost did that before this past year.
Yeah, well, it wasn't intentional at first. Like, I graduated from my community college, got the associates there at this local place, so I still hadn't moved away from living with my dad. And I decided to go to this college that was like a couple cities over, but I could still just take the train there and be fine. I went there for a week, and I was majoring in communications at the time, which, of course, very kind of broad degree there. Just because it seemed fine, serviceable, I majored in music at first, but enough classes it kind of took the fun out of it. So I was just kind of settled on communications. The first week, the professor comes up, and this is like 300s theory and all that kind of stuff. So it's away from the fun stuff. He comes up, and at some point in the lecture, he says, "And just so you guys know, comm is not really a field where you're guaranteed a path to jobs right after. Anyway, da-da-da-da-da," and kind of went on his thing. And I kind of sat back, and I was like, "Oh, well, my plan A is already a pipe dream." Shit. And then between that and this weird, requirement at that particular college that you had to learn another language, which at this point I do not have the capacity to do. Between those two things, I was just like, screw it, a weekend, and I just worked in a bagel shop for 9 months.
Dang.
I guess the cool thing about journalism is that it does kind of bleed into the stuff that I do anyway. I've taken a couple multimedia classes, and I've been awkwardly clearly a step ahead of 90% of my classmates, but not wanting to make a big deal about it and steamroll over it. And there was this one group project that we just finished where I tried to not totally go bash everyone over the head with editing tips for editing in Audacity, which I know some YouTube tutorial stuff from. But yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. Even in the advanced multimedia class, it's a weird imbalance going on. Like the professor literally had me go up, and he had me go up to the front one day and just kind of go through the usual Audacity effects that I use for podcasting.
Oh dang, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's weird how it kind of bleeds over like that, and now my hobbies do kind of feel like work in a weird way. The same kind of stuff that I would normally be doing.
That's interesting. That I like, because in one way, the stuff that you're studying is actually helping you, which is always a good thing. It correlates, but then it makes your other stuff feel like work, which is a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're the same way with writing poetry on your own and doing your mixtape stuff, but at the same time having creative writing classes.
Yeah. It's an interesting experience. I feel like I'm struggling more with playwriting right now, just because of the fact that it's something that I haven't done as much on my own, so I haven't figured out the pace of that as much, and so doing it in my free time and for class freaks me out a little bit, just because it's so much different than what I usually do. Poetry, I at least feel like I have a standing of my own as to where I understand it, and then the fact that I have to do it for class. But if I had gone going into playwriting not really having anything before that, it's much harder doing that class, I think.
Yeah, I mean, some are more stuff I was familiar with than others, because on one hand there are those multimedia classes where I'm just stand back, I got it. And then there is the news reporting class where I had to actually contact 4 different people for a profile story, and and granted, it's the kind of thing where I actually recorded all the interviews I did, and I decided to do it on a really cool topic, so I was able to, so I might actually put out those interviews as a podcast, just as just to kind of tide people over in the 3-month gap there's been since the last episode of Mad Sounds, since it is music related. But still, it's there's a whole other processes that you hadn't really thought of before. And even then, I've been putting off this one assignment where I gotta do an enterprise news story, where it's where I gotta file FOIA reports with City Hall and stuff like that, it's now I gotta be a real journalist now. even though I'm just some random college kid.
I'm just thinking about that. I'm what are you planning on trying to do after you graduate, or do you have no idea yet?
I mean again, I actually got my gig at the Orange County Music League through a blog assignment I did for one of my classes last semester. So it seems I'm getting connections here and there, which is cool. I mean, again, the pipe dream is always music. Once I get right now I'm at around the 30 likes on Facebook, 30 followers on Twitter kind of stage right now, if you don't count my Mark Mad Sounds Twitter. So I mean, hopefully I can try to find some kind of gig writing for writing for some publication or something where I would have to expand my horizons a little bit, because for this news reporting class, like, we each got assigned a beat or like a topic to cover, and I got politics. So I actually did, for one assignment, like, go to City Hall for a city council meeting, and I was there for like this 7-hour hearing on a housing development deal. And I wasn't even there initially for that, but damn it, I was there for 7 hours. I was going to write about that. So yeah, that's the world I'm preparing to enter into. If enough people don't buy into my indulgent concept DPs about blood sugar.
Yeah, that's definitely like a little bit of a pivot you're gonna have to make, like getting into like writing about like music and other things, as opposed to like the politics that you've been writing this past semester. That's fun.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, because even like a lot of the people that write for like these big music blogs and stuff, like not a lot of them like have it as a full-time gig or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, especially because, you know, pretty much every journalism class I've taken that's had some kind of foothold in the internet world, because they have done a really good job being up to date with this stuff. But even then, like, anytime they touch on it, they point out like, yeah, ad rates are not making up for the loss of print. Honestly, between music and journalism, I'm not really good at picking fields that are financially on the up and up right now.
Because it's like, I know even as like, because I'm an English and like creative writing major, like I've tried to like freelance for like different publications and stuff, and it kind of hasn't worked out for me. Also because a lot of people want you to do free work for a lot of your writing to get a foothold.
Exposure.
Yep. And I'm like, but I kind of need money.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been like offered anything yet, but if I was, I'd be like, look, dude, I worked on a YouTube channel for 4 years and never got an AdSense check once. Give me something. And now I literally can't.
Yeah,
there's like $70 in that account that will never go up.
That's heartbreaking.
I was so close. I'm having flashbacks.
I literally have like, I think I made $3 because I don't even monetize most of my videos. I think that's all that's in my YouTube. And like now with like Twitch, like I have like, at least in the past, like I've only been streaming like a month and a half, and like there's like $17 in there, which is exciting. And I'm
nice.
Like, I'm making so much money, which is really sad when you think about it. $17 is something to be excited about.
I mean, you can get a good grocery store trip, half of one. I don't know, depending on where you go.
Especially the struggles of like being like a college student, like trying to like pay for anything, and then trying to like, yeah, especially we're trying to get gigs. Like no one's taking any of us kind of seriously at all.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm hoping my next stream of income will be, but yeah, I mean, because. You know, the first gig that I got out of the two total that I played was a pay-to-play, which a system that after I joined the Orange County Music League, which is kind of actively crusading against that kind of thing, I realized pay-to-play is like such a scam of a model, where you gotta like where the band themselves, where the artists themselves has to sell tickets, and then pay the money back to the venue, or else pay the difference. I mean, I don't want to name names. There's a chain reaction. A couple places in Orange County that have been doing that. That, you know, whenever the OCML is trying to set up shows, they try to skirt around that and like actually put it in places that respect the artists. You know, instead of just whoever has the most friends gets a billing. You know, instead of actually building the exposure for the artists like these places are supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
The cool thing about being in a lot of classes that talk about the internet is that there's been at least 2 cases where I've brought up the H3 lawsuit because it was relevant. So I've at least had that.
I'm glad that there is like YouTube news these days, because I remember doing like projects when I was in like middle school about like YouTube monetization, and like having the data for that was like so hard.
Yeah, I mean, I try to bring up the stuff whenever I can. Like I also brought up like Chris Stuckman's had his thing where Universal has been, you know, stupid as they always are with taking the monetization away from videos to talk about them in any form. So I almost brought that up, because Universal is horrible in general.
And, like, aren't all
like
music and like big corporations just kind of a mess at taking down things?
Yeah, but Universal in particular, because like they could put in like only a couple trailer clips, maybe sometimes even no trailer clips, or like in the case of my podcast, like I put in an Imagine Dragons song, which I put in 15 seconds for the song clips for everything else, and just blocked worldwide instantly.
Dang.
So I had to re-render it with like us like talking over the faintest clip of it, and yeah, put it up there. Which I know the biggest problem facing our world today, not hearing the latest Imagine Dragons album, but whatever the reverse of a shout out is, that to Imagine Dragons last album one time.
I'm like, I think now that like you like reconnected your mic, there's like less of a lag between like what you're saying and like what's moving on the screen.
Oh, so okay, so it wasn't like a delay. Like I was actually lagging between the audio and between the voice and the. Okay.
Yeah, I think this makes more sense now. Because that's why I was having a hard time.
So it's gonna be like that for. So it's gonna be like that the whole time on the video.
Probably. I can try and overlay it a little bit and like move it, but there were some parts where it caught up. So I don't know.
I feel I ruined everything. Well, there you go. Maybe I can put a timestamp in a comment, like skip to this point, skip to the last 5 minutes, if you can't stand lag, or just play it in the background. I won't judge.
Yeah, I'll be like, listen to the audio version.
Yeah, that's probably better off for the more OCD prone listeners out there. Well, yeah, Insolent's out now. Buy it for $2 on Bandcamp.
Hey, and it's also on Spotify, and I'll put all your other links in the description.
Yeah, I mean, Bandcamp is like the main platform and stuff, but if Spotify's your thing, it's through there. It's also on YouTube. I got videos coming up. Like I said, I just uploaded. Actually, I forgot if I mentioned it actually, but I just uploaded a video that I'm gonna make public soon. Probably will be by the time this is out, where I'm reacting to people on YouTube reviewing my EP.
This was cool, man. If you would like to be a future guest on the Creative Nonsense podcast, please fill out the survey in the description below.